The human ship arrived at the edge of the Velthari star dominion without music, without flags, and without weapons shown. It was small compared to the vast living structures that floated like moons around the capital world. Those structures were grown, not built. They curved like shells and glowed softly as if breathing. Inside the ship, Elias Cade stood very still. He was not a soldier. He was not a famous leader. He was not even a senior diplomat. He was a cultural liaison, chosen because he studied alien behavior, human history, and the quiet spaces between words. He believed first contact should be made with humility, not power. In his hands, he carried a small sealed case. Inside, it was something no one else thought important. A flower, earth-grown, real soil, real roots. The other members of the human delegation had argued against it. They said it was foolish, childish, even insulting. The Velthari were ancient. Their queen ruled over hundreds of star systems. What could a simple flower mean to a species that shaped planets? Elias believed it meant everything. The doors of the Velthari court opened without sound. The chamber was vast, open to the stars, with no walls in the human sense. Light bent strangely here, casting reflections that moved even when nothing else did. The air felt alive, heavy with awareness. The queen sat upon a throne grown from crystal-veined stone and living metal. She was tall, elegant, and terrifying in her stillness. Her form was humanoid but clearly not human. Her eyes were dark and deep, like looking into space without stars. Every movement in the court stopped when Elias stepped forward. The silence was complete. No translator spoke. No guard moved. Elias felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Entire civilizations had stood here before him. Most had brought offerings of power, energy cores, weapons, rare elements, enslaved stars. Most had failed to earn trust. He breathed in slowly. Then he knelt. Not because he was ordered to, because he chose to. Gasps rippled through the gathered Velthari nobles. Kneeling was not part of their protocol. Submission was not expected. It was unsettling. Elias rose and opened the case. Inside, the flower rested in a small cradle of soil. Its petals were blue and white, soft and fragile. Its scent was faint but alive. He stepped forward and held it out with both hands. "This is from Earth," Elias said in simple words, his voice steady. "It is alive. We grow them not to survive, but to remember why survival matters." The queen did not move. Her gaze shifted to the flower. Time stretched. To the Velthari, life was controlled. Every organism was engineered, regulated, perfected. Wild life was considered dangerous, unpredictable. Fragile things were protected or removed. No one had ever offered her something that could die so easily. She rose from her throne. The sound was like stone whispering. She descended the steps slowly, each movement deliberate. Her presence pressed against Elias' senses like gravity. He did not step back. She stopped in front of him. Her long fingers hovered above the petals, not touching. "This life," she said, her voice resonating without sound, carried directly into the minds of all present, "is unshielded." "Yes," Elias replied, "it trusts the one who holds it." The queen tilted her head slightly. "Trust," she repeated as if tasting the word. She reached out and touched the flower. Nothing happened. No alarms, no defense response. The flower did not wither. It remained alive. A low murmur passed through the court. The queen straightened. "Do you know what you have done, human?" she asked. Elias swallowed. "I offered a gift." "You have completed a rite of binding," she said. "One abandoned because no species remembered its meaning." The court erupted in controlled chaos. Nobles stiffened. Guards shifted. Advisors whispered urgently. Elias felt his heart pound. "I didn't mean—" "Meaning is irrelevant," the queen said. "Action defines truth." She turned and faced the court. "By ancient law, the one who offers unguarded life to the throne is bound as consort, not as property, not as servant, as balance." Silence crashed down harder than before. The word echoed through the chamber. Consort. Humanity's delegation froze in horror. Elias' mind raced. He had studied Velthari culture, but this rite was never mentioned. It was too old, too symbolic, too human. The queen turned back to him. "Will you stand?" she asked. Elias looked at the flower still in his hands, fragile, alive, honest. He thought of Earth, of humanity's long history of being small, ignored, underestimated, of standing before giants and surviving anyway. He nodded. "I will stand," he said. The queen raised her hand. The chamber acknowledged the bond. Far across the galaxy, sensors flared, recording the moment an ancient empire changed course. Elias was escorted to chambers grown specifically for him. They adjusted to his size, his atmosphere needs, his sleep cycles. But comfort did not ease his thoughts. He was now part of something vast and dangerous. Messages flooded human space. Panic, debate, fear. Some called him a hero, others called him a liability. Elias sat alone, staring at the stars through living glass. He did not feel powerful. He felt responsible. Days passed. He attended court sessions, silent at first, observing. The Velthari spoke in layered meanings, tradition upon tradition. Their laws were precise but rigid. Change was slow, painful. The queen watched him often. Finally, she spoke to him privately. "Why did you bring life that could die?" she asked. Elias thought carefully. "Because humans know loss, we still choose to care." She studied him. "You could have brought weapons." "We have those," he said. "They don't say who we are." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "And who are you?" He met her gaze. "A species that survives not because we are strongest, but because we adapt, we feel, we try again." Something shifted in her expression, not softness, awareness. "You will speak in court tomorrow," she said. "I don't have authority," Elias replied. "You have perspective," she answered. "That is rarer." The next day, Elias stood beside the throne. The court watched him like a puzzle that refused to resolve. A debate raged over the expansion of a border system. The solution proposed was elimination. Simple, efficient. Elias raised his hand, the court stilled. He spoke calmly. "If you remove them, you gain space. If you understand them, you gain allies." Murmurs followed. "This is inefficient," a noble said. "So was fire," Elias replied. "Until we learn to use it." The queen did not stop him. Over time, his words did not weaken authority. They strengthened it. The queen's rulings became more flexible, more adaptive. Resistance grew among traditionalists. Elias knew it would. Power hates being questioned. One night, alarms sang through the palace. Not loud, urgent. A faction had moved against the throne. Security forces rushed to evacuate Elias. He refused. "I won't run," he said. "Not now," they argued. He stood firm. When the queen faced the rebels, Elias stood beside her, unarmed. The rebels hesitated. A human, fragile, choosing loyalty over safety. The moment passed. The queen ended the threat without slaughter. Later, in the quiet that followed, she looked at Elias. "You could have died," she said. "So could the flower," he replied. She turned toward the royal gardens where it had been planted. It still lived. "So could we all," she said softly. Outside, the galaxy waited. And humanity, once again, had changed the future by refusing to be small. The days after the failed uprising did not feel like victory. They felt like balance resting on a thin edge. Elias Cade continued to stand beside the Velthari queen in court, but the air around him had changed. The nobles no longer looked at him with only confusion. Some watched him with calculation, others with quiet anger. A few, very few, watched with curiosity. Change had begun, and not everyone welcomed it. The queen ruled with calm strength, but Elias could sense the tension beneath her stillness. The Velthari Empire had lasted for ages because it did not bend easily. Now, because of a human and a fragile flower, it was bending for the first time. That made Elias dangerous. He understood this. He accepted it. He spent his days listening, not speaking unless asked. He learned the layers of Velthari language, the meaning behind pauses, the weight of silence. At night, he recorded messages for Earth, careful and honest. "I am safe," he said in one transmission. "But safety is not the goal here. Trust is." Human leadership argued endlessly. Some demanded his return. Others saw opportunity. Humanity had never stood so close to real galactic power without fear or force. Elias did not think in terms of power. He thought in terms of consequences. The Queen invited him to walk the royal gardens one cycle. The gardens were not decorative. They were living records, each plant grown to mark a moment in Velthari history. Wars ended, stars claimed, empires absorbed. Among them stood a small, unfamiliar shape, the earth flower. It had adapted. Its color had deepened slightly, its stem thicker. It had not only survived the alien soil, it had changed because of it. The Queen stopped beside it. "It grows," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "Life wants to continue." She looked at him. "Not all life is allowed to." "On Earth," Elias said carefully, "we learned that controlling everything makes us fragile. Chaos teaches resilience." She considered this. "Chaos destroyed my ancestors." "So did certainty," he answered softly. She did not rebuke him. That alone sent shockwaves through the court when it became known. The resistance moved quietly after that, not with open rebellion but with pressure, delays, legal traps, challenges to Elia's status. They argued that a human could not truly understand Velthari needs. Elias never claimed that he did. He only claimed to understand choice. A crisis came from the outer systems. A species newly absorbed into the Dominion refused to follow a resource directive. The traditional response was simple removal. Entire populations had vanished that way before. The Queen asked Elias to review the situation. He studied the data. The species was not disobedient, they were afraid. The directive would strip their world beyond recovery. "They believe they are being erased," Elias said. "They are being corrected," a high noble countered. Elias met the noble's gaze. "That's what conquerors always say." The room went silent. The Queen raised her hand not in anger but in pause. "What would you suggest?" she asked Elias. He spoke slowly. "Give them time. Modify the demand. Let them choose cooperation instead of forcing it." "And if they refuse?" a noble demanded. "Then you lose nothing by learning why," Elias replied. The Queen ruled in his favor. The species stayed. The system stabilized. Productivity rose beyond projections. The data could not be argued with. That frightened the old powers more than failure ever had. Another attempt came, quieter and more dangerous. Elias was accused of manipulation, of emotional influence over the Queen, of weakening the empire. The trial was public. Elias stood alone in the center of the chamber. No weapons, no defenses, just truth. They listed his actions, his words, his presence. "Do you deny shaping the Queen's decisions?" a noble asked. Elias shook his head. "No." A ripple moved through the court. "Then you admit guilt." "I admit responsibility," Elias said, "not control." The Queen watched, unreadable. "Did you force your will upon her?" the noble pressed. "No," Elias said. "I offered perspective, she chose." The noble turned to the Queen. "You see, even he admits." The Queen stood. The chamber stilled instantly. "This human has never commanded me," she said. "He has never demanded, he has never threatened. He has done what none before him dared." She stepped down from the throne. "He has trusted me with truth." She faced the court. "And that terrifies you." The accusation collapsed, but the danger did not. That night the Queen summoned Elias privately. "They will not stop," she said. "I know," Elias replied. "You could return to your world," she offered. "The bond allows release." Elias looked at her, truly looked at her, not as a ruler but as someone carrying the weight of an entire civilization. "If I leave now," he said, "everything we started becomes a story they will erase." She searched his face. "You are willing to stay, knowing the cost?" "Yes," Elias said. "Humans have always paid costs for believing tomorrow can be better." She turned toward the stars. I was taught that mercy weakens rule, she said. You have shown me it can strengthen it. A new threat emerged before the old one faded. An external power long kept at bay by Velthari dominance sensed change. They sent fleets, not for war but for intimidation. They believed the empire distracted, softened. The council urged immediate annihilation. Elias spoke once. If you respond with fear, you prove them right, he said. If you respond with unity, you change the rules. The queen ordered the fleets to stand down. Instead, she invited the outsiders to dialogue. They laughed, until they saw humanity standing beside the Velthari throne. Not as subjects, not as tools, as equals. The message was clear: this empire had not weakened. It had evolved. The outsiders withdrew. Across the galaxy, something shifted. Smaller species began reaching out to humanity directly, not for protection but for guidance. Humans did not have the strongest ships. They did not have the oldest knowledge. They had survived. That mattered. Elias watched as new policies formed. Councils expanded. Voices previously silenced were heard. The empire did not collapse. It adapted. The flower in the garden bloomed again. The queen stood with Elias before the court one final time that cycle. Let it be known, she declared, that power rooted only in fear will always face rebellion. Power rooted in understanding creates loyalty. She turned to Elias. This human is no longer only my consort. He is a symbol. Elias felt the weight of it settle fully. Not glory, duty. Far away on Earth, children learned that a human once stood unarmed before an ancient throne and changed history without firing a single shot. Not because he was strong, but because he believed life, even fragile life, was worth protecting. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.